That's my excited dance. I'm very excited about this video because in this video, this is where I get to really drive home the reason why storytelling is so powerful. You see, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and I want you to see if you can answer these questions. These questions are going to be in relation to the stories that you've heard about. So the first question I have for you is, in that first story about the accountant, do you remember which hand he had in his pocket? Which hand did he keep in his pocket?
So I noticed him as a character because he never pulled his left hand out. It was fascinating.
Did you notice that you remembered? It was the left hand. Now I'm going to ask you the next question. In that second story when I was talking about my grandmother, do you remember how old my grandmother was? How old was she? How old did she live up until?
My grandma did the radiation therapy. She did the chemotherapy. She was so sick when she did it. My grandma lived to 101.
Yes, she lived to 101. Did you actually recall that? I bet you were able to recall this. Okay, I'm going to push this a bit further. Actually, in the story, I said to my grandma, do you remember reading this? I said to my grandma, where I played you the video, I said, if I gave you a kiss, will you give me a what? Will you give me a what?
Hôn mang cái cho lì xì không? Con hôn mang cái mà cho lì xì phải không?
Red packet. You probably didn't even know what a red packet was, but you were able to remember it. More than this, let's push it a bit further. All right, in the story of how I met my wife, this is going to push your memory now. What was the name of the bar? What was the name of the bar that we met at?
I can see this bar so clearly. There's a bar in South Australia called Distill.
Distill! You probably got it as well. If you got that, isn't that bizarre? Isn't that insane? Now, to really drive this point home and really push it even a step further, if you watched my keynote from the beginning of this course, I've got a couple of questions for you here too. In that keynote video that you watched, goodness, maybe a week ago, let me ask you this. How many months did I have left in my university degree when I decided to quit? Was it 12 months, 6 months, 3 months? How many months?
It's a 5-year degree, and about 4.5 years into the 5-year degree, I came home and I had the following conversation with my parents. So 6 months to go, I come home, just imagine you were there.
You probably got it, didn't you? 6 months. Now here's an even crazier question. When I was having the conversation with my parents, what room in the house did they go to talk about whether they were going to support me? I was in the lounge room, and what room in the house did they go to?
So you've got to understand, at this point, my dad is furious. He's furious. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He's so angry. He looks to my mum for instructions, who's now crying for real, leaves me in the lounge room, picks up my mum, and they both walk into the kitchen.
You probably remembered it was the kitchen. It was the kitchen. Now, I'm going to ask you another question. I purchased a lot of books from a gentleman when I was trying to court his mentorship. How many books of his did I buy? How many books of his did I buy?
And I spent all of my savings in 2014, and I purchased 1,000 of his books.
You probably got that too. Wasn't that crazy? This is why storytelling is so powerful, because it's sticky. It's sticky. People can remember it. They can recall it faster. I use this analogy often when I say that when you share stories, you're taking up more hard drive space in people's heads. You're taking up hard drive space. I'm taking up a lot of hard drive space in your head right now. And the more hard drive space you take up in somebody's head, the more connected they will feel to you. The more connected they're going to feel to you. Often what happens in relationships where we don't storytell, we don't feel connected to them. This is why I know so many people who, when they come to my course, they say, wow, Vin, I've only done your course for 3 days in my in-person classes, and they say to me, but I feel so connected to you. Whereas I've worked with my manager for the last 8 years, and I've never felt connected to them. And the reason that happens is because, well, the manager and that particular employee, they don't storytell with each other. And when you don't storytell, you're not taking up hard drive space, therefore you don't feel connected to the person. I'll ask you a really bold question right now, and you can just answer in your head. Do you feel connected to me? Do you? And if you don't, well, then you just totally ruined my point. But if you do feel connected to me, we've probably never met in person. Think about this. You're feeling connected to someone that you're just watching on screen right now. And you feel connected to me again because I'm taking up more hard drive space in your head. Now, the second reason why storytelling is so powerful is simply because when you storytell and you have good structure in your story, what happens is it satisfies the brain. So when you've got good structure, your brain goes, oh yes, thank you, good structure. And then more than this, when you've got good characters in your story and you bring them to life, it accesses people's emotions. It accesses their heart. And when you've got a strong point to your story, it hits people in the gut. People feel it. This is why you'll hear so many storytelling teachers say that storytelling is a full body experience. Now, there are many reasons, again, I can get into why storytelling is so powerful. I'll just share with you one more. And the last one is that when you share information with people and you don't use stories, this will make people think. However, when you share stories, you can actually move people, not just to think, but you can move them to act. So the last one I'll say is that storytelling is more influential because when you share stories, you can actually move them to take action on something. Let's get into the formula for storytelling. See you in the next video.